Welcome everyone to Intertwines the Launch Chronicles. Today we're talking to Bryce Hart. Earhart? Oh man, you would have made my butt. Okay. Bryce, we're gonna talk to Bryce. He's an old classmate of mine who completely skyrocketed while still in college, making us all look bad. I kid you not, like I graduated. I was like, man, goals are so big right now. And he's gonna tell us how it all happened. This is Bryce, everyone. Take a look.
Everybody. I'm Bryce Ahart.
My bad. All right. I was like, I got it. I wrote it down right, and I was
No,
just
I feel
like,
you. It looks
super
harder to
scared.
pronounce than what it actually is. It's a little straightforward.
All right. So, of all the things I want to know is how did you do it? I know we talked about how you
Yeah,
transferred into NYU Tisch dramatic writing. That's where we
yeah,
went to school. Anybody who
yeah.
wants to go, let us know. You transferred as a junior, and then like 1 year later, you was at the HBO fellowship kicking butt.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I always had this complex, and maybe I don't know. I always heard from people who went to film school or any sort of like performing arts academy. Like, the goal is not to graduate. The goal is to make it before you graduate. And because I was transferring sort of in, because think about it, everyone who's notable from NYU Tisch, they didn't graduate. We just claim them. Like Lady Gaga, we claim her, she didn't graduate. I feel like Barry Jenkins, like we claim her, he didn't graduate. Like I feel like there's a lot of people that we
Donald
claim.
Glover,
Yeah, that's one. I mean, name another. That
Robert De Niro.
I feel like we claim. I feel like Tisch as a whole claims a lot of celebrities that did not walk across the stage. And I'm not
Okay.
gonna say that that's a problem, but it just built this complex in my head that basically told me that like, okay, I need to figure out like now, like I had to make it while I was in school. I don't know why I thought I
Hmm.
didn't have this mindset to where it was like, I'll graduate and then figure it out. So I went into, transferring into the Tisch program thinking, damn, all I have is 2 years. And
Mhm.
it's not like I can say I couldn't like consciously made choices to get to where I am. I just always knew I had this determination and drive. And I think I am being just attracted people around me who had that same drive and ambition. And
Mhm.
so that's where I met obviously my writing partner, Stephanie. And we just discovered we had the same affinity for TV shows. And we got to know each other's writing style from being in workshops together. And it was like, okay, she thought I was a dope writer. I thought she was one as well. And we were friends for a whole year. And then a year into our friendship, I was like, all right, what if we write one thing together? So it was just me and her just writing one pilot together. This wasn't us saying, let's be writing partners, just like, let's
Mhm.
collaborate on one project, let's see how it goes.
Mhm.
So we decided to use the network fellowships as a deadline to keep us
Yeah.
disciplined and to sort of make us like continually write and try to refine our work.
Structures. Yeah.
And that one script that we wrote together, that first script we wrote together, got us the HBO fellowship, or got us at least to be semi-finalists. So like out of like I want to say 4 or 5,000 applicants, they did a top 24,
Mhm.
and then so that first script got us there, and then after we were semifinalists, we had to do a phone interview, which was nerve wracking,
I remember you saying that at
and
school. Yeah.
yeah, nerve wracking, and then you have to do you have to submit a second script.
Mm.
So at that time, we didn't have a second sample, so we were in Bopst, literally just churning out a script together. And then when we got sick of Bopst, we switched over to I can't remember what it's called, but in Skirball,
Yes. Oh, you went to the
or maybe it's
theater.
Kimmel, maybe it's the top of Kimmel, maybe it's
Okay.
Kimmel.
Yeah. 12th
Yeah,
floor.
yeah, 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 yeah. We were out there just turning the second script away. We turned it in, but it was crazy because as we turned it in, like the next day, when we were still working on the next step of the process, just in case we got selected, we got that email that we were finalists, and so then from there, it was like all we had to do was we had to pitch 3 things to HBO of what we would develop as a show and series over the course of this 9-month fellowship. So we just rallied. We came up with 3 pitches, and then we went down to the HBO office in New York, and then we pitched all 3 of those ideas, and none of them really landed. But it kind of didn't matter because we ended up just talking about ourselves, our personal experience, like our
Mhm.
lens, and like what we wanted to do in the industry and how we wanted to shape it, and what we thought was missing, how we thought we could be instructive on bringing that to television,
Mhm.
and we may have pitched for 20 minutes and may have talked for like an hour and a half.
No. Mhm.
Yeah. And now like in being in the industry and knowing like what samples get noticed versus what doesn't, it's it has to do everything with what was covered in that meeting. Like that's sort of where I started to reimagine, like, how do you actually facilitate like getting into these spaces and like popping and jumping off the page. It's less about like writing the sample that is like what you think people want to read or what you think they want to see. It really is about like what is your specific and like unique lens. And so that's what we got from like the interview with. That's what I learned from interviewing at HBO, because it was like, oh, I kept thinking it's about the pitch, it's about the pitch, it's about the pitch. And of course we got there and they really wasn't vibing or resonating with anything we were saying. And then when they broke down all of that bullshit and they just started talking to us about the kind of stories we wanted to tell, that was more important.
Interesting.
So we got the fellowship. So that was the biggest first hurdle that cut through all the chatter and noise. And so there I was. So the way the fellowship worked was they flew us out to Los Angeles for a week.
He was still in school, everyone.
Yeah, so this is
we're still in school at this point.
Yeah, this is before my senior year. So yeah, so the summer before my senior year, they flew us out to LA. We are in a week-long intensives of workshops, and this wasn't really anything geared towards like writing and craft. Like obviously you were selected, so everyone had a baseline level of craft and finesse to their writing. So that wasn't really what it was about. It was really more so a workshop about how to present yourself as a writer and a fixture in the industry. Like a lot of it is knowing how to pitch yourself succinctly.
It's like branding.
Yeah, like branding. Like you have to know how to, like what they call like the elevator pitch of yourself. Yeah. So like if my elevator pitch to you would be like, hi, my name is Bryce Ahart. I'm a TV writer. I have a passion for YA. If you had to ask me and my writing partner what we are interested in doing, it is elevated YA. We think that, the genre doesn't get, its due. So like, I don't know. You're explaining who you are, what you write, and what you want to be doing. And so like, that's a way to sort of lay out for people. So it was more about learning how to bring yourself onto the page to where when people look at the script, they think no one could have written it but you. Because you can give the same idea to 10 different people, but
and it's just never going to sound like the way you can make it sound. I know this is a key thing that we learned in school as well. I'm glad they reinforced that because it's true, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one has the story like you have that story.
Yeah. And so
fast forward. I'm going to cut you off and fast forward. After all of this blew over and the fellowship was over, I saw the HBO party and everything. I wasn't invited. That's fine. I'm not. One day it will still not happen. But what was it like after? Because I know you came back for graduation and we were all like.
So I'm not. No. So it sounds all nice in theory. So when I left NYU in December 2017, I moved to Los Angeles without having anything really set up. I had the fellowship, but I was not staffed yet. Like I didn't have a job. So I waited tables the first 6 months. I was away from NYU. Like I didn't just go into a writer's room. Like, so from that like January to that May, I was waiting tables. I was a greeter in Los Angeles, like restaurants. The reason why I left early is because I had the fellowship. They told us how instrumental it was to be in Los Angeles, to be staffed. Like you just need to be here. So I felt like I got all my credits. I can graduate. I'm not going to forfeit this opportunity just to say I want to stay in college for 6 more months. Because it's all what I know. So it was, the first 6 months was hard. I was waiting tables and balancing, finishing up the fellowship. So we get to the final, maybe 2 weeks of the fellowship. Throughout the script we had been working with, because Steph, our fellowship director, wasn't really seeing our voice in any of the work that we've been turning in. She was like, these are very competent scripts, but it's not reflective of your voice or anything unique. She said, what's keeping you up at night? And at the time it was Parkland, because Stephanie is from South Florida. So that shooting was personal to her because she saw it personally in her timeline. And it wasn't really about having to go to the news or Twitter or the media. It was like her actual timeline. And then incidentally, a month before, my mom and a kid brought a gun to school. And so she was on lockdown. So we decided to write a script about the aftermath of a school shooting. It's totally in the vein of like The Leftovers meets Friday Night Lights. That's how it's been described and how I like to see it. And so then that changed everything. The fellowship director sent that script out everywhere. It was just the first draft. And from there, we got meetings set up at like CAA, WME, ICM. And so we met around everywhere. And then we signed with ICM on the spot. And then from there, and this is again, like this is maybe like late April or whatever. And that's pretty late into like network staffing season. So we came into staffing season pretty late, but our agent had heard some chatter about there being a spinoff of Vampire Diaries or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Sent our sample out. We got a meeting with Julie Plex, like right hand, did well. Got another meeting with Julie, did well, and then we found out a couple of days after that we were on the short list. So the short list is like when they can't officially make an offer, but you know that like when they are available to make an offer, you're getting one. And so we had to wait 2 weeks because Legacies was a weird situation. Like it didn't have a pilot. So the network had nothing to weigh on except the script and like their faith in Julie Plec. And so when upfronts happened and they announced the show, like I emailed my agent. I was like, "Oh my God, are we staffed? Are we staffed?" And she was like, "Yes." And then I quit my restaurant job on the spot. I was like, these, because they were gonna fire me too because they weren't gonna let me take off to come back for our graduation. So I was gonna have to quit anyway.
Oh, see, it's graduation. How dare you? It's graduation.
So simultaneously of getting staffed, our pilot that we wrote at HBO also got produced through their director's fellowship. So I was staffing, and then we were also like doing the building blocks of assembling a pilot presentation, like cast, sets and all of that stuff for our own separate project. So that was happening in 2018.
Okay. And then you were on Legacies for a while, and now you're at Netflix.
I'm on a show called First Kill. First Kill.
Is it new?
It's just announced. So it's not like a pre-existing show. So it's going to film, we're first season. So I've only ever worked on first season shows, which I think is it's a special experience.
Right, because you're setting up what everybody's about to see for the rest of the seasons, right? You're like the pilot season. You gotta hit it and quit it. If they don't like it, it's a wrap.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like building, like you're just, I don't know, it's just establishing the foundation of all the characters and like all the arcs to come. It's really, really cool, especially when you leave a show and you see like you pop back in, you see where it's gone. You're like, oh, that's cool.
Are you gonna stay? Do you think you'll stay there?
So yeah, I love the show I'm on. Pending, Stephanie and I have another project that just got set up at a studio, so we're going to be taking that out soon. We're trying to find with the help of the studio and our producers, we're trying to find a showrunner, and then from there we'll take it out to networks. But I think I'm going to be on the show in the foreseeable future if it's renewed. If we do a good job and our boss wants us back, then yeah, I plan on being around. Yeah.
Okay, so what are your goals? You mentioned making your own production with Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie, if you're here, if you see this, hi, I love you. Yes. What are you thinking for the future? What do you like? Showrunner.
I think that's not next for me. Like even if our project goes, we would be co-EPs per how our contracting is ironed out, and that's like number 2. I mean, it's typically showrunner is also an EP, and then they're co-EPs. And that's kind of how I want it. Creator, I want to have like a big say in the room and in the creative, but there are a lot of things that we just don't know as far as like managing like production and like all the different departments and like navigating network and studio and producers and things like that. There are a lot of things that we still like, we've done that at like the writer level when we were like turning in scripts and things like that and story errors and outlines, but we have never done that while being in a managerial position. So I'm actually comfortable with, for our next 1 or 2 or 3 projects, God willing, that we have that could ever go anywhere, to just be like number 2. Like I actually want to know what I'm doing so that I'd be prepared to be a showrunner, because it's not a job I actually even envy.
Good.
It's really not. I really like the creative and of working in the room and ironing out the stories, but no, I really don't want to be on the phone with network execs all day or studio execs all day. But that just comes with the territory, and that's something I'm gonna have to learn. But that's what I see is in my near future if our project, which I'm excited about, goes. Other than that, continually staffing. I know Stephanie and I are ironing out the final pages on this feature. So maybe we'll venture into features a little bit, because that's something we haven't really tackled. But
you guys are like a power team. I'm really glad you guys are still together. And they're not together. They're like just writing partners.
Yeah.
Writing partners.
Yes. Yeah, it was cool.
I mean, and you got her from school. So if I wanted to get a writing partner now, how would you do? I know we talked about it and I remembered it, how you would, network in that sort of situation. Granted, you were thrown in the mix and you had all of this loveliness around you. But if I'm basic, like I am, how do I do it?
No, really, I think personality, like, first of all, do you like the person? Because that's a lot of what even goes into showrunners' decisions in hiring people. Like, could I sit in a room with you for 10 to 12 hours and talk
Yeah.
story and we bump our heads against the plot hole? Like, there it's a lot likability and personality. So first of all, you need to just try to figure out like the kind of person you are and the kind of person that you think would complement you. Doesn't mean you have to get someone exactly like you, but I think people who can work in concert with each other, complementary, like what are your strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do we bring something together? So just personality. And then I think you also have to have respect for that person's craft and talent. And you have to also, I think, choose a writing partner who you think would be better off alone.
Whoa,
And
what?
it's a weird thing to say. What I
Yeah.
mean by that is a writing partner who has everything. Like they can exist outside of this duo. Like they themselves are a complete whole. That way, if
Yeah.
you're sick or you're out of commission and you can't pull it together, your partner can have your back.
Oh.
So like it doesn't, and I'm not saying like you just want an equal. Like this isn't about like, hey, let me find somebody that can write the last half of the script for
Right.
me. It's really about like finding that person who can complement you the best, whose vision is aligned with you, who, you are for the most part creatively on the same page, but there's enough difference there to where like your initial instinct is not theirs and that you can find like a happy medium and something interesting. Because I always think the first idea is probably not always the best idea.
But so
So
how do I find this person? Is it like I
I
swipe
found
on Tinder sort of situation?
No, I think you first of all you need to just surround yourselves with creatives. It's something that would happen naturally. So I think you should look online. Like they definitely have a lot of like TV writers groups. Like there are a lot of like aspiring TV writers or even some who are established who have like writers groups and like they maybe weekly or bi-weekly and they just, read each other's material and submit and have notes. It's like very similar to a workshop that we had at NYU. And I know from
Mhm.
there, like when you meet people and you meet people who are trying to do the thing you're trying to do, or at least trying to go down that same path, they are typically open to collaboration. So I would say writers groups in Los Angeles are big because I think it's important to befriend around you. Don't try to befriend up. Like I think there is like
Mm.
the biggest mistake people try to make is they think like, oh God, I met a showrunner, I met an EP. Like let me
Yeah, we don't care.
have this connection. That's hardly probably going to be a connection to you. I'm not going to say it isn't. Like there are always exceptions, but more often than not, it's going to be the people who are not established who you don't think are your
Mhm.
connection. Because
Right.
the one thing about like Hollywood is like nothing could be happening in your life one day, and then a couple days later, everything could be happening because things happen very, very quickly and very, very suddenly. So it's
Mhm.
nice to sort of like insulate yourself with people who are at the same level as you because any one of you could pop off.
True that. And I'm gonna tell my interns that too. Make friends with your classmates. It's not a
Yes.
joke. We say that all the time. Make friends with your classmates.
Yeah, and I used to say that all the time. They're like, "These are the people you're going to be collaborating with. These are the people you're going to be talking to and working with." And I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, it's true.
All right. And then the last one is the trick or treat because it's happy Halloween. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing today.
I'm
I'm
in the
gonna
Poconos with my
you're gonna,
friends."
you're gonna go to a pub.
No, I'm in the Poconos with my friends.
Oh well, thank you for joining us while you're in the Poconos.
Yeah, so it's crazy. So I'm trying to achieve that work-life balance of being here, but
Oh
also
yeah.
I'm on episode. So yeah, it's crazy.
I know you're like on episode as well. He's working on an episode, everyone, and he had taken the time to do this with me, and now he's in the Poconos with his friends. Don't get in trouble. Somebody be out here and be like, he's not working.
No, it's all good. Trick or treat about the industry.
Hmm.
I think trick about the industry, which is also a treat, is again, like I said, like nothing could be going on one day and then a couple days later, everything could change. And that's part of the magic of Hollywood of like, oh my God, this Cinderella story, everything changed. But it's also one of the most damning and annoying things about it because like
Right.
you never have any inkling or sense when you're close.
Right.
And
And
so
like,
it's
I can't make
always
it happen.
yeah, so it's always tempting to think that like you should just go and do something else and you should quit. And that's like
Mm,
I think
mm.
so that's it's weird and it's a vicious little cycle because when something happens for you, you're like, oh my God, this feeling, this feeling, this feeling, because you're so used to people saying no, you're so used to not having your work read, received,
Right.
being given the green light that when someone finally says it, it's just euphoria, honestly.
I know.
But
I bet it is.
so that's one that's kind of both. And then I think the obviously the biggest trick of Hollywood, like something that I think we need more is more representation. I don't just mean like that in the writer's room. I think about that just like um comprehensively, just across the board. Like
Really?
sometimes I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, why don't we have this content on television?" It's because the people who greenlight shows, like execs,
Are
are not.
not.
Those people aren't not in those rooms, and I think a lot of like we focus so much on what's happening on screen, but really, it's really what's happening behind camera that would better serve us. Because like if you can change what the demographic looks behind the camera, naturally, what's on screen will follow. So that's been the biggest gripe. It's like sometimes so that's just on representation and like the type of content we see. And then another trick is the idea that everything has to be very IP driven, or it's like everyone always wants to recreate the last big unexpected success. And it's like, why doesn't anyone understand that the reason why the last thing was unexpected is because it broke, it deviated from like the status quo. Like Game of Thrones was the biggest show on television. So I'm sure everybody was buying up fantasy stuff thinking they're going to be the next Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones, no one thought Game of Thrones was going to be Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the next Game of Thrones, so to speak, will not be anything, I think,
anywhere near that.
It'll be something else that like creates this water cooler moment of television. We just won't know what it is at any given moment. But so those are my tricks or treat of the Hollywood.
The diversity one, I know I had spoken to my godmother last week about what she thought about the industry and diversity. She said they're doing initiatives at Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and these things. Are they not really initiatives?
No, they're doing them. I'm not saying that those aren't effective. I just think the reason you have to keep doing initiatives is because the decision makers, again, all look a certain way. So the reason you need programs, I'm just talking about like how to solve things systemically. Like the reason you need outreach is because you haven't changed your ranks. You know, that's just kind of what it is. I'm not saying they're a problem. I mean, obviously, I got my way into this industry via diversity fellowship. So I'm not speaking ill on any of those entities. Like I wouldn't be in the industry if it wasn't for it. So I think those are all valuable. But if you're asking me, could we do better? Could we do more? I'd say yeah.
Well, this is great. No, this is a wrap up. We hit it. That was great. I feel like that was the end of the conversation. I'm feeling warm. I'm feeling knowledgeable. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. And then the launch is supposed to be tomorrow. Keep an eye out for Intertwine's launch. And I'm trying to do all these diversity things, these mixer things. Bryce, I'm going to let you know after the fact.
Okay, I'll post on social media, on my socials.
Yes. Everyone else, you too. Bye, everyone. Bryce, you stay right there.
Okay.